Resources Committee to order. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Bruce Paulson.
Here.
Ron Buckholz.
Present.
Jesse Betcher.
Here.
Mark Helvig. Brian Bissonette.
Here.
Kevin Shepard. You have a quorum.
Thank you. And did we comply with the open meetings law?
The meeting was noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statute.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jay, do you want your guest to introduce himself now and then she can go back to work, or do you want to just stay and listen to the whole thing?
No, I want to get her the whole experience. So
All right. So she'll get her severance check right after that. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is our public comments. If anybody has a public comment on something that's not on the agenda, we'll hear it at this time. Okay, Ms. Zelmer, go ahead, please.
Good morning. My public comment this morning has to do with the budget discussion. If ultimately the county board decides not to accept the recommendation for the Hayward Area Visitors and Convention Bureau, there has been discussion of where else the funds could come from. And what I have not heard is a full discussion of how much county taxpayers already support recreation and tourism in the county, and specifically with regard to the county trails. And is there anyone in the room that is able to provide a history of when the county approved putting collection boxes for donations or fees to use Berkey trails, how the county did not collect that money, but it went to the Berkey, and then ultimately how the county acted to not require fees of any organization that are holding events on county land and collecting fees for it, because I do believe that the discussion is worthwhile for the county to recoup funds to help maintain county lands for recreation and tourism through the collection of fees. So I have not seen that come back on the table. I would appreciate discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, hearing none, we will move on. Approval of the October minutes is in order.
I'll make the motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the October minutes of the Land, Water, Forest Resource Committee. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Events.
We have a request for Canva's Global Fat Bike Day celebration for an event on December 4th. It's an organized ride with varying distances. It's kind of just a loose guided group. We do have insurance on hand for the event.
Okay, so you're recommending approval?
Yep.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Global Fat Bike Day event.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded to approve the Global Fat Bike Day event. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Madam Treasurer, you're up.
We've got two over-the-counter applications for county land sales. One's a Northwoods Beach lot from a adjoining property owner. The second is for the town of Weirgore. This gentleman's been buying property from us the last year and a half. I recommend approval.
Okay, good. And then that's, if we approve it, it'll go on to the county board for approval. Maybe we should take these separately. How about 8A, approve the Bass Lake land sale?
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there a second to approve the Bass Lake land sale?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the Bass Lake land sale. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. All right, item 8B then would be the town of Weirgor land sale. We would need a motion to approve this and pass it on to the county board.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there, excuse me, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the town of Weirgor land sale. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Land records, thank you, Madam Treasurer. Land records and the county surveyor. Okay, not here. All right, forestry department. I guess the first item on the forestry department report is recreational trails, motorized and non-motorized. Motorized,
Good morning.
morning.
As I reported Monday at Economic Development meeting here, shoulder season's usually kind of slow here in October. Slow, but not for the ATV world here. We were very busy trails with ATVs here this past October. From there, a couple of weeks ago, I was down at Wisconsin Dells for the State Snowmobile Association meeting. So over 800 people attended that meeting down there. Had a couple of workshops there on different things. We invited them up to come up to Sawyer County here in January. So our AWSC, Association of Wisconsin Snowmobile Clubs, will be hosting directors from all the different counties up here at Flat Creek in January, the first weekend in January. So hopefully we have snow for them, take them out snowmobiling and riding, and show them our great trail systems up here.
Great.
That's it, unless there's
Do
any
you have
questions.
any brief update on the NORTAC quarterly meeting?
That's item E.
Yeah, I know. I just was gonna catch them all together while you're up.
Sure, I can go over that. And a couple weeks ago down at Birchwood ATV Snowmobile Club allowed us to use their clubhouse down there for our meeting. Couple-hour meeting, and then from there, we trailered machines down to Rusk County and rode the Rusk County ATV trails down there, and they gave us a tour of some of them. We're very privileged here that in Sawyer County, we've got over 200 miles of ATV trail with the Flambeau, the Tuscobia, the Schwamigan, and the Coney Land trails. So we've got a lot of miles of trails, funded trails. Down in Rusk County, they don't. They've only got about 20, 30 miles of funded ATV trails down there. But with NORTEC, we're looking at revitalizing things here. It's been a little bit slow on what's going on, so they're redrafting some bylaws. They've come up with some strategic planning and hopefully getting more involved with that. So that's been the big push with NORTEC in the last couple of meetings with them.
Good. Okay, any questions for Mr. Morotek? Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody here for non-motorized trails? Okay. Great, you're up with your October forestry report.
Okay, I'll run through them pretty quick. I didn't get a chance to review, but we've had 8 sales listed active in October. Currently, with the coming timber sale bid approval, we have sale value sold, uncut on file of just over 4.5 million. Sale revenue for October was just over 277,000. So our year-to-date gross timber sale revenue is 2 million, just shy of $2,040,000. So at this point, Bruce, I'd really like you to ask me if we're going to hit budget, like you usually.
All right, you know, Greg, I got a concern. Are we going to hit the budget?
Yes.
Okay,
All
good.
right.
So,
So-
but this, we have November and December to go yet. right?
Yep. So, you know, markets are still pretty squirrely out there. We've been living on Aspen for the most part. We're still getting some hardwood cut and moved. Pine's still going pretty well, but as you'll see on our bid opening, hardwood is still a big issue. So, but right now we've got sale revenue billed out at just over $100,000. Sale inspections are on target for the level activity. No new tracks were turned in this month. We just got done with the bid opening, so everybody switched back to field work while the weather's still good. Recon's on target. Good Neighbor Authority, we're still working away on our contract there. We're hitting our goals on that. Nothing new to report on Oak Wilt, Ashmore, or mountain bike trails or Berkey, but ATV, UTV trails. We did finally begin our rehab projects that we bid out earlier this year. Trail 11 is actually complete at this time from Scobie to Lost Lake Road, and they've moved up to we've got 5 more projects in the Sealy Hills. It's all the same contractor. So we've got probably 2 of them completed now, but we're on target to get these all done. So it's looking good to get some of these grant projects off the books and done finally. So
any questions on the October forestry report?
I got a quick question. So I know it's not Sericon, but right outside Minong, there's that, just north of town there in that back road, there's a giant lot of 1 million logs out there.
Mhm.
And those appear to be for pulp because they're smaller, but they also appear to be mostly hardwood. So
Mhm.
you keep mentioning that our popple market is where we're at, but obviously there must be some market for the hardwood pulp.
Yep, that's a Sappy wood yard there. So, Sappy's still taking, limited amount of mixed hardwood for their mill.
Okay.
They're kind of in the driver's seat. They're the only game in town for the most part. We have had some contractors are moving hardwood pulp by rail to places south of here. They've been pretty secretive of where it's going. So
China?
I don't know. But we're still moving some hardwood. But in Sappy, I don't know how much they're taking. They picked up one of our hardwood sales on the bid here, and they've got a couple other ones that they have.
Okay, so we are selling some to them? Okay.
We're still moving it. It's just not like it was.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? Right. Okay, DNR? Right.
Yes, Mosquito Brook Dam. This would be the 5th letter that has been sent to the landowner regarding the situation. We touched upon a timeline for permit application, physical removal or transfer of the property to a nonprofit. There was a deadline of October 31st set, and to my knowledge, there was no response. Where it goes from here, we're not even sure. So Parks and Recreation, docks are being taken out for the season at the boat landings, and that was still in progress, but I think by the end of the week that should be done. Then wildlife, the elk season is currently underway. Fall season seems to be going well for a variety of people. On October 21st, a judge issued an injunction against the wolf hunting season, so that is currently suspended. And for forestry, there's nothing to report. So.
Questions? I have a couple of questions. So on the wolf, I know it's been, it's on hold. I don't know what the status is, if it's going to come around, but I'm also pretty sure that none of the permits were actually issued for that, because people pay $10 to apply for a permit to trap or shoot a wolf. And because of the injunction, I guess that the permits aren't even out. So there could be a lag there if they say, okay, the hunting season can start on November 10th, but nobody has their permit. So I don't know if you know the status of those permits, when they're gonna issue them.
I'd have to get back with you.
Okay, and then the other question is on the, do you guys maintain, or who handles the level of the chip off flowage? Because the last few years in the fall, they've been dropping the level by several feet, like 4, 5, 6 feet. And this year it's not, it's down maybe 1 foot. So I don't know.
That's Excel Energy. They have the water rights to that. I think, I don't know for sure, but I think it may have to do with maybe the lack of precipitation. They're afraid to maybe draw it down so low, fear of, if we don't get any snowfall over the winter, then if you drop it that low, how do you replenish it?
Okay.
I know those factors are.
So they determine that on their own, or they get input from the DNR?
I'd have to get back. I'm sure they get input from
Okay.
people, but I would have to get back with you on that. like water levels on the Chippewa.
Yeah, I just know that this time, November 3rd of last year and the year before, it was down, 5 feet. And this year it's down, 10 inches.
I don't know, does Mr. Bissonette have any background on this?
Yeah, I just raised my hand because I did receive a memo from Excel Energy because they're the responsible party for maintaining the maximum minimum flow on the Chippewa River. And so the memo that I had received was they were going to not do the early drawdown this year because we've been in a drought situation. And so it'll be kind of like in previous years where what they're going to do is they're going to start doing the drawdown later towards the winter time when we know what kind of snow cap we have. And so that's why you're not seeing a drastic drawdown right now. They got to maintain a minimum, what the heck do the high water or the low water mark, something like that. So.
I'd also heard that they're not going to draw down as low this year as in previous years. And then previous years, they were trying to accomplish a drawdown to kill vegetation off and to control some of the erosion milfoil that they're seeing.
Right.
And that had been working over the last 3 years when they did a 6-foot drawdown. I heard this year they were only going to look at around a 4-foot draw.
Yep, that's why you seen the early.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Okay, Brian, did you have a comment?
Well, no, I was just going to reiterate that that's why they did the early drawdown like that, because actually my my EPA water coordinator was part of that, the early drawdown, and it was pretty effective in killing the milfoil. So.
Okay, Jesse, does that answer your question? Do you want more information on it?
No, that answers it. I understand. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Okay, great. You want to move on to your timber bids?
Okay, we had our fall timber sale bid opening on October 22nd. We offered 24 tracks. We had acceptable bids on 14. So we had 10 that had no bids. And those were all mixed hardwood sales, oak and mixed hardwood, maybe some access issues, frozen ground. But all the bidders are known contractors we've worked with in the past. I would recommend approval of high bids.
So we will look at the high bids, and you need approval for us to proceed and accept the bids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion to approve the high bids.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to accept the highest bidder on the fall timber sale. Any discussion? Greg, I have a question.
Yep.
How does this compare with the fall sales prior years?
We're still on target. We look at hopefully, selling between 800,000 and $1 million on each bid opening. This spring, we threw out a lot of sales. We didn't know what was going to happen, and we were at like 1.6. So we did the same thing this fall. And like I said, we didn't get the 10 bids on the ones, but we're just shy of $1 million for sold value, which is still on target. So for the year, we're at 2.5 million of sold timber sales. Just looking at, we watch Aspen and hardwood. Aspen, we had about a 6% dip in price from the spring, which is kind of expected. Hardwood pretty much stayed the same. So it seems like the Verso situation is starting to kind of catch up with us a little bit. I think contractors are real hesitant to pick up any more hardwood sales until they get things cleaned up off of their books with other sales. So we're going to continue to advertise. I mean, we still have allowable cut goals for all of our species that we have to hit. So, and we're selling a few of these each time. It's not ideal, but we're getting by.
All right, very good. Any more discussion among the timber sale bids? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed, nay. Motion approved. Okay, Greg, you got the next item. It's the Sealy Trail Buffer request. I think at the last meeting, there was a request to treat the Sealy Trails the same as the Berkey in terms of aesthetics and so forth. And so we've got some citizens here that would like to make comments as well. Do you want to start with your presentation?
Yeah, I can do that. I've got a packet that I handed out that goes over our aesthetic policy. It mentions the Berkey aesthetic buffer. I've also got 3 different maps of the Sealy Hills Trail System with the timber sale. We've got an overview map. I've got a sale map that has the sale that's question right now, and then I have a map that shows our cover types in the area. But I guess before I get into that, I usually don't do this, but I want to bore you real quick and go over our mission statement for Sawyer County Forest. Just read it real quick. So this is in the new plan, this was in the old plan. So our mission for the Sawyer County Forest is to manage the natural resources and facilities of the forest in order to provide economic, social, and ecological benefits to current and future residents of Sawyer County and the state of Wisconsin. Grow, sell, and harvest timber on a sustainable basis, employing current science-based forestry principles in order to provide income to Sawyer County and the townships containing county forests, and in order to provide direct and indirect employment on a local and region-wide scale. Provide broad range of sustainable recreational opportunities to foster the local tourism industry in order to serve the desires of the public and to encourage healthy lifestyles for our citizens. Also ensure the sustainability or enhance natural resources, including soils, waterways, wetlands, groundwater, and a broad base of flora and fauna. Protect rare or other unique resources from degradation, destruction, or overconsumption. Cooperate with other public and private entities or groups to achieve the mission. So that's our mission statement, and this is what we balance out every day with every timber sale, every recreational trail. So these things are taken into account, and we do have a balancing act with recreational use as long as timber sales. But our focus is on the timber sales program. That's what we're statutorily bound to. That's what our mission statement is bound to. And we do provide a huge range of recreational opportunities that fit within that program. So with that being said, we can jump into the aesthetic policy that we have. So the request is for a Class A aesthetic management zone on the Sealy Trail system. So the Berkey binder system, it has 150-foot, for lack of a better word, buffer from both sides of the trail. The aesthetic zone doesn't restrict harvesting. It provides us an opportunity to do more aesthetic management, but it's not a no-cut buffer. We try to harvest for more long-lived species, mixed hardwood, oak, things like that, but where it's possible. But oftentimes we are stuck with a large portion of aspen, which we manage even age to regenerate. Even age harvest systems simulate major natural disturbances, fire and wind. Aspen specifically is an intolerant species. It requires full sunlight to regenerate. And aspen, it's a coppice system for regeneration, which means it's a vegetative system that regenerates. It's not by seed. And generally with aspen, the overstory is completely removed. So the residual that's left can usually interfere with regenerating aspen. So if you look, I'll just jump to the last map that shows our cover types in this area. Blue is the Sealy double track. The dashed blue is the single track. If you look at the blue shaded area that has the numbers in it, the year, that is our Aspen type that is located in the Sealy Hills Trail area. So we're kind of stuck with a big sea of aspen, that's next to a recreational trail system. And there seems to be an impression that we don't care much about aesthetics in terms of timber management, but there's certain things that we are doing to manage aesthetics on these trail systems and nearby. The biggest thing that we do, if you look at these aspen types, these are year origin, 2001, 1981, 1995. Within this trail area, we're pushing probably 400 acres of aspen that's in that 40-year range, 35 to 40 or even longer. A rotation age for aspen is averages between 40 and 50. Winter block, wetter areas, we're closer to 40. You get up in the Sealy Hills, Tisibagama, things like that, we can stretch it out to 45 or 50. But we have a huge component of aspen on the forest, and we have worked hard over the years to try to break this up. Our allowable cut is just under 1,000 acres per year based on our acreage of aspen. So ideally, we want to have that stratified across where we have, 1,000 acres of aspen in each year of origin. That gives us a sustainable stand that we can manage year in and year out. So one of the big aesthetic things that we do, and we did on this sale, was we break up these aspen blocks. And ideally we try to have 5 years in between age classes. So that breaks up the aesthetics, provides for a host of benefits for wildlife species, a number of species that require pioneer forests like aspen or jack pine for a number of reasons. So that's one of the things we do. So, we've got, 1,000 acres of aspen in this area. And you look at all the year origins, and we're trying to break it up. So that's one aesthetic thing that we do. We also have irregular boundaries, a lot of edge, scalloped edges on this that help break up the type. We also do leaf trees. This particular sale, with oak wilt concerns, a lot of our aspen clear cuts, we've been doing more removal of oak and other species just to prevent the spread of oak wilt. This particular sale, we left all oak leaf trees. We left white pine, spruce fir to break it up. And if you look at the orange type, those are oak islands that we try to enhance. We try to expand a little bit. So there are aesthetic things that we're doing that aren't readily obvious to the users, and I understand that a clear cut is kind of drastic aesthetically when you first go into it. But the things to remember is this trail system was developed in an aspen clear cut. This is the forest that they're drawn to by previous management, which is similar to what we're doing now. We got a year of origin of 1981 on a huge chunk of this to the east of this trail system and through it. The one we're harvesting is a 1979. So, I understand the concern and I understand some of the issues when they look at a clear cut, but aspen comes back fast, and next year you're going to have 6 to 8 foot aspen whips in here, 5 years. I should have had pictures of how this comes back. So I guess that's our pitch on the aesthetic end of it. So the aesthetic buffer on the Berkey, Berkey is a linear trail system, 150 foot from either side is easily identifiable. It's basically straight up and down. The single track trails that Canva developed, we discussed having an aesthetic buffer on those new single track trails. I went through Canva and we laid out every square foot of those things. And these aren't Canva trails, this is different, but just as an example. And we went through and we laid out every square foot of the single track trails, and the discussion was, hey, can we have an aesthetic buffer like the Berkey on the single track trails? And the debate, and it's like, well, no, we would support the trail project, and we have supported the trail project, but due to the winding nature of it, a buffer just wouldn't work. So that doesn't mean we don't take considerations for aesthetics when we design timber sales. So, I mean, if we want to discuss the specifics of the aesthetic zones, we can do that. But I guess that's my starting point for why we did what we did.
So if we went to the buffer, I mean, yeah, I know that you said we don't have a linear trail here. Would the county be losing money? I mean, what's the financial impact?
Well, I mean, that's the question, I think there's some idea that we're going to have a no cut buffer or something like that, which is in violation of our plan. But if you did, 150-foot buffer on the single track and the double track in this area, that ends up to be about 262 acres that would be in an aesthetic zone. If this turned into a no-cut buffer, our bid price on this particular sale, it's a 124-acre sale. Total bid price on this sale was $194,866. So our cut acre value in this area for Aspen like this is just under $1,500 or just over $1,500 an acre. So if we were to go with a no-cut buffer, if that's the direction, real easy, real quick, that's $345,000 that we don't manage. And Aspen is difficult because, if we walk away from Aspen, it has a shelf life. It's a short-lived species. It's susceptible to wind throw, which you get into huge maintenance issues on trail systems, and the mortality really starts to hit when you get up into 50 years old. The stands fall apart. You pretty much knock it out of production for our lifetime as it slowly converts to a different type.
Roy, do you have any comments about how we're managing this part of our forest?
I think Greg's doing a really good job. We just spelled out, how he goes about it. Like I said, Aspen is a short-lived species, and if you don't maintain it, it's just going to convert to something else, which takes a lot of time. Or the other way is to plant, which is not very economical either.
Okay, so can you expand a little bit about when it matures and it starts to, I'm going to say, degenerate, what the issues are?
Usually when white rot appears, that's usually like at about 55, 60 years old. It's just a matter, usually like wind storms, tornadoes, that kind of creates a weak spot in the tree where it snaps off at that point. You can get hypoxia and canker entering into the stand, which can, it doesn't spread real fast, but it does spread. Some of these older stands are probably more susceptible to forest tent caterpillar. I mean, the tent caterpillar will cover aspen in general, but because the older trees, they kind of recover slowly compared to the younger stands when those defoliation outbreaks occur. And then as time goes on, like I said, the aspen just falls out, and it could be, we call it succession, but I mean, that could take anywhere between another 40 to 60 years before you get another viable stand, which is more likely in this neck of the woods. It's going to be soft maple, birch, and some hard maple, whatnot, some oak. But it's a quite a long time to convert that over naturally.
And is there any benefit to wildlife from clear cutting?
Yeah, I mean, region-wide, Great Lakes State, young aspen is on the decline. And there's a number of species that require require young aspen. There's a variety of, and it's not just game species, even though that's a big one, but there's a variety of warblers, things like that are threatened or endangered that really key in on this. There's a number of them. I could list off a bunch, but I don't have it right in front of
There's
me.
probably, I was at a training here this spring. I know like black-winged warbler, yellow-throated warbler. There's like about 10 different species of warblers. They come up here from Central America. This is their breeding ground. We can't control what happens in Central America or South America, but this is their breeding ground. So in order to upkeep these populations, they need the young forest habitat to raise their family. And then when they go back to Central America, I mean, that's totally out of our control. But what we can do to help these species is, is kind of maintain their breeding grounds. And the grouse and the aspen, that's the different life cycles of this is important to grouse. Like the brooding habitat, that's like 5 to 15-year-old aspen. That has a high content of forbs, which attracts insects, which feeds the grouse. And that's kind of, that feeding source is kind of important for their wing development, especially flight feathers. And then like from up to, once they get done with that, their diet changes like midsummer. So then they're going to be seeking out like older aspen, somewhere between like 20 to 35 years old. So then their diet turns over to like insects, like mosquitoes, spiders, other invertebrates, mushrooms, if they can get a hold of them, acorns, and then like the older aspen age classes for grouse, they feed on the male buds. That's their food source during the winter. And then the dense cover, so they can escape from predators too. So that's pretty important. So,
Yeah, I know the girls like it. Take this place.
Okay. So Greg, I guess, do you have a recommendation out of this?
I guess it just trying to illustrate, we do balance all these factors in when we set up timber sales, and aesthetics is part of it, but it's not the end all be all. We try to balance this multi-use, that's kind of our deal here is we've got all these uses, but timber management is also a big use. And we still have the trail system, it's just changed temporarily. I guess just to my point, it's like I'm not in favor of a aesthetic management zone here per se. We developed the recreation program is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Timber sale program is getting more and more hurdles, more and more restrictions. Markets are struggling, and if we keep on putting more restrictions on, it just makes it more and more difficult to manage. Like I said, I'm not in favor of a aesthetic zone per se, but I think something that we could work on with this block. This trail system has kind of been fairly loose over the years. It was kind of a spontaneous development. This was before my time. It was just here, and I don't know the history of how it was developed. When we set up the single trail systems, we had these maps where we tried to avoid every aspen stand or red pine that was going to have frequent management, just so to limit that exposure. This trail system, we're kind of stuck where it is. That being said, like I said, it's kind of loose, and I've walked through this with representatives from Sealy Lions a couple times, and we've had questions about moving trails, rerouting different things, and it's just been kind of a loose system. But I think moving forward, if we could just at least come up with a management plan for this trail system, a little bit more long-term, with the trail managers out there. And we could probably work in some different timber sale designs if we have just kind of that basic framework put down. And we just haven't had that. And it's just something we haven't got to yet. But I think moving forward, it's something I think that could ease some of the tensions and get everybody on board with what we're trying to do.
So who would you work out that revised management plan with, the Sealy Lions or?
Yeah, yep. Yep, that's the trail steward that we have in the area, so.
So it's the Sealy Lions are the ones that maintain the trails and things. Okay. Any, before we turn it over to the audience, any more questions for Greg or Troy? Or anything?
Yeah, just on the, so I know we can't argue the benefits to wildlife on logging and even clear cutting from deer to the insects. There's, I mean, the research shows that it's beneficial to almost all wildlife. I'm not aware of it being detrimental to any wildlife, but maybe it is. I don't know, maybe the wolves, I don't know. So we can't argue that. So talking about aesthetics though, which is completely subjective, you know, some people like seeing that sea of the 6-foot aspen whips, you know, and so that's subjective. I think the most important thing you said though was that the reason this exists and this trail system exists in the first place is because of the logging that happened there. So, you know, I think people should just remember that it is beneficial and it doesn't take long to, you know, after the skidders and loggers go in there, it doesn't take long for you know, a year later, you can hardly see the effects of the ruts and stuff like that. So I just think we need to keep that in mind that it was created out of this. And I mean, that'd be like me sending an email about how bad technology is, you know, I'm using my computer to do it. So thanks for that report. Do we need to vote on, is there need to be any kind of motion on this? Or?
I think I'd like to hear from
Okay.
some people who have public comments, and then maybe we could consider as a committee what our next steps are, maybe flesh out what Greg is saying about some revisions and so forth. All right, I'm not sure I'm going to take them in order that they were submitted, but Cindy, do you have a comment?
I think it was Barb standing up.
Okay, all right, so you want Barb to talk first? Barb and Pat O'Brien.
Okay, my name is Barb O'Brien and I live at 13046 West Old Double O in Leonard Township. I'm here again to talk about the Sealy Trails. I appreciate the information about, you know, the logging and the process and so on. I want to make it clear, I am not opposed to logging. I know logging is beneficial. I know it's beneficial to the animals. I know it's beneficial to the trees and whatever. I understand that completely. What I am opposed to is this clear cutting right along the trails. I think a nice compromise is to have a 150-foot buffer along the main trail. I know it's not reasonable to expect a 150-foot buffer along all the single tracks. I've never asked for that. I've never commented on that. But along the main trail system, I think it would be appropriate to have that. That way you still have all the benefits for the wildlife and the regrowth, but you still have the benefits of the aesthetic value of the trails. I've got a quote here from one of our neighbors who couldn't make it. He had a death in his family. And this is what he wrote, and I quote, "I can attest that the Sealy Trails is in use every month of the year. One of the trailheads next to our house, so I can see how many people park and take to the trails. The Sealy Trails are unique in that you can hike, you can mountain bike, you can run, snowshoe, fat bike, cross-country ski, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, skijoring with dog is allowed. Plus the trail is well marked and includes a state forest. What trail does all that? And the fact that it has a new Class Act warming hut and is groomed," unquote. I was on the trails last week again. I'm on there actually pretty much every week. But last weekend, one of the days that I was on there, there were so many people there, I was beginning to feel a little crowded. There was a marathon runner, there was a bicyclist, there was a man with 2 puppies, and then there was this hunter that seemed kind of lost too, but he was there on the trails. And I counted those people on a very short time that I was there. So if you multiply that by the number of hours and days, you can determine that those trails are used a lot. In the winter, there's always cars parked in the parking lot without estate plates for the skiing and the biking. In the summer, it's the same for the mountain biking. There's tons of cars parked there with out-of-state plates. These are visitors to our county. Chances are they're stopping at the bars and restaurants, the bike shops, the gas stations, and spending more money in our county. So yes, I understand, but there is less money. You have a buffer, but you also have to take the other consideration. You're making money in sales and in taxes and those type of things. They use the Sealy Trails because they're beautiful, they're maintained, and they have great signage. The Sealy Trails are used by hundreds of people and residents and visitors year round, and we've already talked about the bikers, the skiers, the snowshoers, the dog walkers. I understand, but the purpose of the aesthetic management is to minimize negative aesthetic impacts of timber harvesting. So I'd like you to consider that policy from 520. Once again, 150-foot buffer easily meets the guidelines and spirits outlined in the aesthetic forest management. A buffer would ensure that the integrity of the trails would remain intact and the experience of being in the forest would not be destroyed, and they wouldn't look as awful as that one section of trails does now. The county is still able to raise money from logging, and the many users of the trails will still have a positive, enjoyable experience in the forest, which is a win for everyone. I encourage you to walk the trails so that you can see what they look like in the areas that have been logged and what the unlogged areas look like. I have some additional photos again because I know pictures are always good. These are some photos that I took in the past week on the Sealy Trails. And I want to point out, these trails are beautiful regardless of what time of year it is. You don't have to have the leaves and everything to see how beautiful the trails are. The panorama picture helps you to notice the perspective of what it looks like with the trails logged and not logged. You can also see other pictures where it looks like when you look into the trees, what you see for the logged and the unlogged areas. And on the other side, once again, is a whole bunch of signage that we have here in the trail. You can see that there's lots and lots of signage put up by different organizations. It's another sign that these trails are used a lot. You wouldn't need all these signs if the trails weren't used. So to me, that shows that they have an important role and it's important for those trails to be here. And to summarize, I'm asking you to vote to change the status of the Sealy Trails along the old Double O Road to the same status as the First Trail and others as a Class A zone outlined in your aesthetic policy, which includes a 150-foot buffer when logging the area. And then that could be forwarded to the county board. And once again, I understand it is not a no-cut buffer, but right now, it's not looking so good. And I think it would be good for everyone, a win-win all around if we had the buffer in place. I thank you for your time. Thank you for the information. And I thank you for your service to local government.
Thank you. So now we have Pat O'Brien. Do you want to speak as well? You'll have 3 minutes, please.
I'll take about 30 seconds.
Okay.
She said it all, prepared. I'm not, I didn't come here to talk, but as representing the City Lions or the city's ski club, that trail system is not ad hoc for 25 plus years now. And I don't think it's too much to ask. It doesn't cost the county a dime. Brings in skiers, all the people she mentioned, all the money they spend. Get a 150-foot buffer zone on the main trail system. I don't think it's too much to ask. There's a lot of aspen, a lot of poplar out there. I'm a bird hunter. I understand. I'm a deer hunter, and poplar cutting and new poplar growth is our go-to areas for both those species. And I'm more of an outdoorsman than I am a skier or biker anymore. But I walk those trails, and I was up there the other day. And just to walk through, and you see in the picture itself, just to see through the woods, it's a beautiful area. And then also you come to the clear cut, and it's like, Jesus Christ, what they do here? You know, and why? And just for what, a few hours in logs, it's like cutting your nose off and spite your face. I just think you can do both, and everyone should be able to be happy with it. And it doesn't cost the county a dime. We do it all, the ski club does it all. And we would like to do more up there, but if it's going to be leveled, we're not going to put the effort into it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else want to public comment. Cindy, you want to talk? Or you just,
I would like to, but I didn't get my thing up to you in time because I was late.
well, you were late.
Yes.
No, why don't you stand up and give us your name and what your address, please, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Tom Geyer. I live in the Steely area, right on Stark Road. And Greg and I have actually talked a lot. I mean, he's been great working with us, and we walked the land. And he said, you know, this is what's going to happen. You know, you're going to be shocked. And so I know this is what we have to do. Just to give you a background, I'm the one that's been maintaining these trails for 25 years, basically. So along with help with the Lions Club, but it's been in the previous 10-year plan. If you look back with Sawyer County, Tom Geyer and Gary Penman were the 2 stewards of the trails. So, but just that being said, Greg, are you pulled out of it for good now, or what?
No, there's still some to finish. I think they moved out sometime in midsummer.
Oh, so do you know when they're coming back?
It would probably be next summer.
Okay. That being said, the gentleman that was there, Scott from Medford, I mean, he did try to keep the bulk of the stuff off of our trails. So, you know, he really did. And, but it's just that right now we're not going to be able to groom a big section of that because it's total south facing and snow will not sit on there. And, you know, even if we could have had 50 feet of buffer would have been nice, you know, on the main trail. The only thing I had to say is that Greg has been working with us, and the loggers were pretty good up there, what I've seen so far. But the look of it is pretty rough. And I guess the only last question I have is the technique you guys are using now as far as clear cutting. Basically, it seems like anything less than 5 inches is just dropped and laid on the ground and run over. Is that right?
Yeah, we require them to shear down to 2 inches other than reserve trees. That helps everything regenerate, and then they ride on top of all that slash.
That's gotta be a heck of a fire danger, isn't it?
Aspen breaks down so fast.
But the other thing is you can't even walk through it. It's that there's 2 feet of layered brush, timber, and I'm sure animals are busting their legs in there and everything. So it's a pretty rough looking. If you want to try and walk through it, go ahead. Because I'm just wondering that technique, could we ask that the loggers maybe do a little better clearing other than just dropping everything and driving over it?
Well, contract wise, it's already we require. You know, so we've got a 24-inch slash maximum, you know, in these areas. So we encourage them, and most of these guys, they are floating over the top and they bust them down pretty good. But I know it's drastic at first, but
you told me
it comes back.
It was going to be.
Yeah.
Okay,
So just thank you for your time.
thank you. Anybody else have a comment? Mr. Merowich.
Hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I put my 2 cents in. As for motorized recreation, we don't want a buffer zone out there for our trails and such like that. I think we spent over $30,000 last year on brushing out there, hired contractor brushing to brush along our trails and that. I agree, it looks like heck the first year when you're brushing it. I don't care for the looks on it, but within a year or 2, it grows back in. The other concern I would have would be our storms we've had in the last few years. You know, it's cost the county a lot to clean up a lot of these trees down. Tuscobia we had down there. What was that, 3 years ago, that storm came down there, and it's hard when all those trees are knocked down by storms getting those cleaned out. The loggers don't want to deal with that like they do cutting this down. So just wanted to
Thank you.
put that out that I support the clear cutting.
Thank you. Any other comments?
All right, I will.
Sure, you don't have to.
You're in trouble.
And I ride ATVs. I love the ATVs.
May I have your name and address,
Oh,
please?
Cindy Ferraro. I live on 13350 Stark Road in Sealy. But I think the beauty of the Sealy Trails while we're here is not only with the Lions Club and CAMA and whatever, and I'm not a major silent sports person, but I do hunt and I hike, and the beauty of these trails are that is so attractive to them is hikers, hunters, and it's dog friendly. So Sealy, and with the shelter there, we don't have a shelter that is like just for silent sports. So that shelter there, the hunters, anybody and everybody uses it. So it's not just a silent sports. And we've also had the ATVs that will park right off of 00 in that area and they walk there. You know, not all ATVers just want to blast through. I mean, that's not a place for ATVs, but the ATVers have used that hut too. So I mean, it's open to everybody. And it opened my eyes, and I do understand that how much easier it is to have a buffer on the Berkey Trail than it is on our winding trails. I do get that. But any kind of buffer would help so we could maintain it. The Lions Club makes, more and more events and everything, and all of our money, like the Hayward Lions, it stays local. And we support a lot of local people. So I just want to keep that in mind too, that if we could come to a happy medium or a win-win situation.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Greg, you want to weigh in? I want to flesh out what you were talking about, a different management plan or a different?
Yeah, I think going forward, if I could work with Steely Alliance or work with Mr. Geyer and just come up with a better plan for the area, a better plan for the trails, get a little bit more ahead of what we're looking at for upcoming harvests, and how we can mitigate, some of these issues going forward, without going the official buffer or anything like that. But if maybe we could kick it off that way and just see where it takes us, I think would probably be a good step.
And you would work with the Sealy Lions only or others?
No, whoever, yeah, whoever the users are that want to be involved. Like I said, we're got an open door policy, and we try to work with people as best we can. Like I said, but as I kicked it off, I mean, we're kind of walking a tightrope, for production and the other issues that we run into for sales establishment. So.
Okay. So the request still is to establish the 150-foot buffer on the Sealy Trail system. I guess I'll turn it over to the committee. What's your pleasure?
So that, it's not a no-cut buffer, so that means that you could still go in and do selective harvesting on mature trees. Is that the plan? You just wouldn't clear cut? Is that what?
Well, is
that what they're?
Generally, we lean that way, but even with the aesthetic zone on the Berkey, clear cutting is still an option. We have certain types that, let me find the language here just so it's not like we're out there trying to find these areas, but
Right.
We have an obligation to manage the best way we see fit. So where is that?
And also while you're looking at that 350,000 or so, you said that was for the single track roads if you had a buffer there, or was
that's just for the whole. Yeah, that's for the system. That's single track and the double track. So that's the high end. So so the following, apply to management of the Class A studies along the Berkey. So we have timber harvesting immediate vicinity of the trail, 150 foot. There's that part. Coordinate. Okay, so the one catch on that is at times due to disease, insect infestation, timber regeneration, and reforestation, the County Forest Administrator, in conjunction with DNR, may determine that in the best interest of a forested area along the trail, more severe actions need to be taken to appropriately manage the area for the long term. This might include actions such as clear cuts, let cuts, slash of ground vegetation, etc. So it's, we still have the option, and if you look at this trail system, we're kind of stuck with the level of Aspen. And all this Aspen, this is second entry, so the bulk of these were like the 80s. This was all part of the LP. When LP came to town, there was an accelerated harvest program on Sawyer County Forest to feed the mill to get it going. So, we have a huge glut of this 1980 average origin aspen up here. Winter block, we have a huge glut of 77 origin from the downburst storm that flattened huge chunks of the county forest in the winter block. So we have these big peaks of aspen that we have to chip away at. So it's difficult. This area is difficult. And that's what I was getting to. It was second entry aspen. It's more homogeneous towards aspen on the second go around. So we're kind of, our hands are tied. We don't have a lot of options for conversion. The oak and the hardwood mix is not in the second cut stands like it is originally, that you could tweak some stuff into a conversion. So clear cutting is still our main management tool for these aspen blocks. And like I mentioned, we work on irregular boundaries. We try to break them up, smaller units. We run into issues with the smaller units though, with the harvesting systems we have now. I mean, we have contractors with, a minimum of $1 million harvesting system for one, and some of them have two. So you have to have a sizable sale for them to operate efficiently on. So we're juggling all of these issues when we set up a sale.
Economies of scale.
Right.
So it sounds like though, not very many acres are actually being clear cut per year, and might not even be every year. Is that right?
Right. So we spread, 1,000 acres. We've got 40,000 acres of aspen on the Sawyer County Forest scattered through all the blocks. So, we're clear cutting 900 to 1,000 acres a year, across that land base.
So out of this block, it would be, some years it might be 0, some years it might be 100.
Right. So, this sale, this is 125 acres. That's, I think our average sale size now is probably 80 acres. So the forester that set this one up, he carved out this particular sale in 2 patches. So part of, what we do is we'll do patches to break it up. But then there's a balancing act. It's like, well, do you want multiple entries in a rec area, multiple years for timber harvest, or do you want to do one bigger one, pull the Band-Aid off, and then we're gone for 40 years versus stringing out contractors with multiple entries. So
these photos are obviously pretty recent. This was cut in the last couple months.
Yep.
It'd be nice if we had some photos of stuff that was clear cut 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago to show the level of growth and how that would have been nice to have.
Brian, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I've worked with a lot of foresters over the decades and worked with the community. I know it's really a controversial thing. From an aesthetic standpoint, not too many people do like looking at clear cuts, but there are benefits to clear cutting. I get it. My first thought when I was thinking about it was, well, maybe there's a happy medium here by just reducing the buffer, but then you end up in the situation where, well, if you got a reduced buffer, now you got potentially trees that are going to be exposed to the extra wind. They're going to end up toppling over at some point too. I don't know, to me, it's a case by case thing. I like the idea of working with Greg, working with the Lions Club or in the community, you know, take it case by case, but just to apply a uniform buffer. I don't know. I see the pros and cons to it both. So
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment, questions? I mean, do we want to direct Greg to establish a 50-foot buffer, or do we want to go with what Greg has suggested to work closely with the Lions?
I think Greg should work with the Lions on this, if he's willing to do that, so.
Yeah.
Then we can take another look at it.
Roy, do you have a comment or two or anything?
Well, I agree with what Greg's doing, just, you know, we just come to a compromise. Everybody can go about their business.
Okay. So I don't think there's a motion necessary. We're not changing our forestry, I guess, 15-year plan, are we? I mean, there's no
Not at this
indication
time.
that we want to do that.
We can at any time, though. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, no, I know. But
That's the thing. And if we work through this and if that's what we come up with is the easiest solution, then we'll bring that back. But
okay, very good. Okay. Any more comments from the committee? Okay. then-
I mean, yeah, I would like to say that, I mean, I do appreciate the public comments and we do take those into consideration. And, you know, most of us also are in the woods a great deal and we're hunters as well and we just like hiking. So we understand what you're saying. But we also, you know, understand what Greg's saying. And for a short time, I know it's probably not very aesthetically pleasing, but I think it generally is only a year or two for a small tract of land out of a few thousand acres there, you know. So I think we can just leave it as is. I think that Greg is being a good steward and, you know, coordinating and discussing options with, you know, the Lions and the residents. So I don't think we have to make a motion to change anything, in my opinion.
All right, and so we'll wait. Greg can come back with revision to the 15-year plan. Okay. All right. Exhausted this topic, I believe. Any more comments? If not, we can move on to zoning and conservation.
Yes, so we have hired a new replacement conservation technician position. That's Natalie Erler. She's a welcome addition to the department. Do you want to say anything about yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie Erler. I just graduated from Northland College. I'm pretty sure. I just graduated from Northland College in May with a degree in natural resources, emphasis in fisheries and wildlife ecology. And I'm just super excited to be working here. Kind of one of my, dream things is to work with people while also staying with the whole conservation theme. So I think this job is a really good bridge to mend those two things together.
All right, thank you.
So she's been doing a lot of
welcome, Natalie.
yeah. So she's been doing a lot of on-the-job training, working with Tim Seidel, getting the tree sale up and running for this coming spring, making shoreline preservation agreement checks, getting acclimated as the new aquatic invasive species coordinator, and setting up the 2022 poster and speaking contest. So again, thanks for coming here today and seeing the ropes of the Land Water Forest Resource Committee. We do have plans for the Upper Bruni River Dam replacement. Those should be available and coming to the December committee meeting for Land Water Forest Resource Committee. Still very busy with violations and chipping away at those when time allows. We will have a year-to-date summary on those violations available in January. The official public hearing for the decontamination ordinance, we're going to postpone that, which is item B here. That official public hearing will be held December 8th at the Land Water Forest Resource Committee. And that is to give towns more opportunity to review the draft ordinance. Also, because land water was moved up a week, there was some publication issues. We needed to, again, postpone that out. So I do have one other item that I do need to discuss, and that's the possibility of having an interim conservation administrator for some of the potential approvals that would be needed as part of the Upper Bruni River Dam project. I will be having to take a medical leave of absence starting December 1st, and it could be several weeks until I would be back in office. And there may be some timing considerations that I would like this committee to potentially grant Tim Seidel interim approval to sign on my behalf.
Is that a committee issue, or Mr. Hoff, is that administration?
I believe that's administrative. You can just appoint him.
Okay.
And,
Okay,
yeah.
good, okay. All right, anything else?
That's all I have, unless you guys have any other questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Could I get Natalie's official title?
It would be zoning conservation technician.
Okay.
Assistant.
All right, any more questions, comments? All right, I guess we don't have a USDA report. Brian, do you have any comments on LCO conservation?
Nothing really notable. I mean, we're just finishing up some fall projects, and so just waiting for the snow to fly.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item is a update on the 2022 budget. Mr. Hoff, do you have any comments, or do you want to just turn it over, ask the?
yeah, just, where we're at is the public hearing was held last week, and the budget is in the board's hands, so you can discuss anything related to the departments within your jurisdiction, or the budget as a whole as well, because you'll be adopting that budget next Tuesday.
Okay.
So if you've got any comments, questions, or need any other information provided before then.
Okay. Any comments from Greg or Jay? You're okay with the budgets the way they are? I think we had this discussion last month.
Do I have a choice?
You have a choice.
I'm not okay with it. No, I don't have any comments.
Okay, okay. Any member of the committee want to talk about the budget or anything? Okay.
Just one final comment, if I may. You asked Greg, if he meets budget, and that, of course, is an important component of our budget. Not only the property taxes that we levy, but the sales tax revenue we get, the stumpage revenue that we get. Those are our three biggest items, and we try and estimate those conservatively so that he can meet budget, and that always helps the bottom line, because any revenue that comes in excess does help our fund balance.
Right.
And as we have had to use that fund balance, like we are this year a bit, those are important things that we budget. So even though, we could probably budget that a little bit higher, it's, reasonably reasonable to budget that a little bit conservatively, so we don't have issues of being over budget.
Right.
I got a question. Tom, and I'm not sure if this is feasible or not, but when we sell land like we did today, where does that money go?
That is a number that is also budgeted. So Diane, the treasurer, gives us an estimate of what she thinks the sales are going to be for the upcoming year. This year, we had substantially higher revenue than what was budgeted. So again, that would fall to the bottom line and add to our fund balance overall, and you take the whole picture, but that does help the budget, help us balance the budget when there's excess revenue like that.
So if, I don't know, I'm gonna say that Hayward Lakes, not that I'm picking on them, I agree and I believe what they do. Couldn't some of that money come out of there, out of the land sales? Or not? I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
Well, technically, yes. Again, it all falls to the bottom line. So you take a look at the big picture and see where we're at. It's just like the rest of the budget, there's some pluses and minuses, and, just because you're plus in one area doesn't mean you can spend all that money, because you might be minus somewhere else. So we take a look at the big picture, and at budget time, that does get taken into accommodation as far as, did our fund balance go up or down from the previous year? Right now, we're sitting at about 30% which is, within our range, at the higher end of our range, which is a good thing. But just because we hit, the higher number there, to use that all like right now, it gets tricky.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I just was thinking about that, and then our land sales, I just didn't know where that went. So, thank you.
Okay, any more questions or comments on the budget? And then the future agenda items, we will put on in January, the update on the citations. And anybody have any correspondence or reports or anything else they want to talk about? Added for discussion. All right, hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.